Hello and welcome to another edition of the CEO's Chair. My name is Winifred Ampiao. This program is proudly sponsored by GTP New Star, and GTP saying the more colors, more designs. And also my costume, or this particular design, is being designed by Jine Jakuma. Jine Jakuma Collection is also saying that timeless impression. Let's now talk business. The International Labour Organization revealed in a study that Africa, the world's youngest region, continued to be confronted with high level of unemployment. As a result of this particular trend, part of Africa could face a massive unemployment crisis by 2040. Research also has predicted that a shortfall of some 50 million jobs across the continent, warning about its dire consequences on the global economy. My guest for today is a member company of One Africa Media Group, one of Africa's largest digital publisher, allowing global brands to reach targeted audience nationally, regionally, and continentally. With over 10 years of experience in marketing, communication, and international expansion, he has overseen the strategic direction of a company since 2012, where he has been responsible for starting and growing it from scratch to its enviable position as the #1 destination for jobs and job seekers in Ghana. Before leading one of Africa's fastest growing startup companies into Ghana, he served as a job seeker channel lead for Jobberman.com, where he was responsible for the monetization channel of job seekers for the brand in Nigeria. Prior to Jobberman, he acquired extensive experience in advertising, marketing, communications, and branding after working with top-notch traditional advertising agencies. He holds a bachelor's degree in public relations and advertising and also an executive MBA. Over the years, he has been a speaker at various e-commerce and career development conferences and summits. So Babajide Otoki is the CEO of Jobberman Ghana, and he is my guest for today. Hello, you're welcome to CEO's Chair.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So once again, it's a privilege to have you on the CEO's Chair, and from my outlook, I would say that you're doing fairly well in Ghana.
Yes, please.
The Ghanaian economy is treating you well. Is that the case, Baba?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity, because there are very few platforms that give people like us the chance to have our opinion out there. So I'd like to say kudos to yourself and your team for this program. About the Ghanaian economy, it's a case of the good, the bad, and the ugly. There are certain aspects of the Ghanaian economy that is really fantastic. There are certain aspects where we think a little bit can be done just to get more value out of the economy, and also from, let's say, a functional perspective, we can say yes, there is a lot more to be desired. Yeah.
So since you made mention of the fact that there's the good, the bad, and the ugly,
yes,
I'll just give you briefly for you to tell us which part of the Ghanaian economy is good, which part of the Ghanaian economy is bad, and which part of the Ghanaian economy is ugly. Not in the sense that if it's ugly, then it means that we need to work on them.
Yes.
So briefly, what would you say about these three phrases?
I think the very first thing about the strengths of the Ghanaian economy is probably in the stability that the Ghanaian economy offers, because compared to a lot of developing countries, frequency in policy changes, frequency in government going back on decisions and issues, they are very minimal in the Ghanaian economy. This is also one of the fewest economies in Africa where you can easily take the government to court and win, and the government is forced to pay up where liabilities are probably owed to you. So I think from that aspect, that's a very good thing for investors. It means that there's stability, there's reliability in the government, and also because of the frequency, because of the ability of, or because of the change in government from different political parties, it also shows that the Ghanaian people are very progressive, and the peaceful transition in between governments also indicate that there really isn't a do or die affair in governance. So I think that's a good part of the economy, and there are a lot more good things in the economy, but I'm sure this program is probably not the avenue to list out everything. But I think the less desirous parts of the economy would probably be a report recently that said Ghana was probably the most expensive country to live in Africa. the cost of petrol in Ghana is still like one of the highest across Africa. So if you look at it, there are some indices that points to the fact that, well, it might be a bit expensive doing business in Ghana, but overall the economy probably seems to be able to support all of that. So I think I'd like to leave it at that.
Okay,
now, yes.
then let's continue by taking a look at unemployment situation, which probably is not just an issue in Ghana.
Okay.
It's a continental issue,
Yes, it is.
which most African economies are trying at their best to make sure that they will be able to address this particular canker.
Okay.
We've seen reports coming out. What would you say about unemployment situation generally in Africa?
I'm a personal believer that the unemployment situation in Africa is not as bad as, is very bad, but not as bad as the young people of Africa make it to seem like.
Okay.
Because even though it's assumed that over 60% of the youth population of sub-Saharan Africa are unemployed, I think that a lot of the unemployment falls into two categories: underemployment and unemployment itself. So underemployment is where people are in jobs where they feel that it's not worth their pay. The pay is not worth the compensation. The compensation is not what the skills they are bringing to the job. It's not what the amount of work they are putting into the job. So they feel that at some point their situation is really very bad. So if you ask such people to come out as employed people, they would rather identify as unemployed than being categorized as employed.
Okay.
They're actually the guys who are really unemployed for a couple of factors. Some of them due to lack of the right skill sets. Some of them due to the inability to fit into designated roles, and a lot of it. There's also the part about it being habitual, because sometimes you work with certain people and you realize that their work attitude, their work ethics are really not really even good at all, let alone be sufficient for the workplace. So the unemployment situation in Africa is a dire one that probably the African governments also need to do more about addressing. One of the things I probably blame Africans for is that Africans are always looking up to the government for solutions. Yes, there are a lot of challenges across the whole of Africa, but also we've seen from many successful private business people that it's possible to create wealth out of nothing. So the unemployment situation in Africa is primarily a drive that the government needs to provide the right infrastructure, the right policies, the enabling environment, and a lot of private enterprise can thrive, because in most countries across the world, the private sector is the biggest driver of employment. So the unemployment situation in Africa can be addressed in that
sense.
Yeah.
But there are some people who also believe that educational system is not really helping, and I'll probably want to use Ghana as a case study. Most people, or most industry players, feel there's a disconnect between skills that they are required from these young graduates and then the kind of job that they're supposed to do. So they feel that our educational system, in terms of providing the needed human resources to feed into these industries, we really lack some of these skills. Would you attribute this to the nature of our educational system?
I have a very popular saying. I think I did a TEDx talk sometime in 2015, where when I came out on stage, and the first thing I said was, "Not everybody's going to be great," and people were like, "Why would you say that?" But the truth is that not everybody will be great. Not everybody will be a Bill Gates. Not everybody will be a Dangote. That's probably less than 1% of the total population. So the question is, what then will everybody be? What everybody will be is that everybody will be a functional part of society. Everybody would be a part of the wheel. Everybody will be a spoke in the wheel to make sure that the wheel keeps turning. And how do we achieve that? We have to be able to understand that a lot of the weight of the economy is going to be carried by the middle class. It's going to be carried by the working population, which we don't really need a lot of. You don't to be in that category. You don't need a lot of skill set. You don't need a lot of knowledge about how to run a business. What you just need is you need to be a specialist, specialize in your own field, and you help the process of division of labor achieve the goals of the organization. So in as much as I'd like to put the blame on the educational system not producing enough entrepreneurial young graduates or practical graduates, I think that it's a function of just understanding that the educational system was designed to serve industry, was designed to create, yes, the 1% that would change society, but also primarily the functioning part of society that will keep society going. But what I think that educational institutions have failed to do is to evolve, is to adapt more modern tools, is to engage private entities, is to engage companies, is to engage institutions on how best they can marry practical with
the theoretical
aspect of education. And I think a couple of organizations are beginning to do that. But if maybe there's a more concerted effort at going purposefully after equipping the graduates with practical skill sets. I think there's just very little that we can aspire for at that point.
And so in this sense, would you say that government has a role to play in bridging this particular gap? Because if you take a look at the educational system, right, you rightly said that, well, there are some institutions who are trying to ensure that some of the courses that are being run are courses that have direct market opportunities for these young ones. But to what extent do you think government can also, what role do you think government can play in this regard?
Personally, I think the role of the government is overrated.
What makes you think so?
The government are just a bunch of guys who make policies, they make decisions. A lot of how the decision is implemented, how it's executed, still lies with a lot of private businesses, a lot of individuals, a lot of private entities. So yes, there are a lot of laws that the government has enacted, a lot of policies the government have put out there. Can we honestly say that we are going by everything? No. So the role of government in all of this, which the government has done, is to empower educational institutions to make it more practical, to have students, to produce students that are industry fits. You understand? So even though if the government comes up today with a law, promulgate a law or enact a law that requires all educational institutions to make skills acquisition or practical knowledge acquisition an important part of the educational process, it still doesn't mean that it would change the way things are being run. Because what I know, for instance, a lot of institutions have what they call either students' industrial working experience or industrial attachments or internships. So if you look at that aspect, that's an opportunity for students to acquire real life experience, acquire on the job experience, acquire field experience, acquire the skills they need to succeed. But you and I know the reality. The reality is that some of these students will leave school and just go somewhere and fill the forms and bring it back to school without actually getting the experience. So the role of the government, like I said, is overrated. The government actually is overburdened with a lot of, currently as it stands, a lot of the African governments are overburdened with a myriad of problems. So adding this to the problems that they need to solve is just unfair to the government. What I think we need to do is, amongst educational institutions, there needs to be an agreement or a collective bargaining to include the fact that we need to produce students that can actually solve problems. We need to produce graduates, that can solve problems. We need graduates that can help society be better. We need graduates that are properly equipped to deal with the problems of society. So that needs to be a resolve that is taken by the educational institution. So maybe the role of government can facilitate that.
Okay. So in that sense, would you also say that most young graduates or most students or the youth are really not pushing harder? Because when it comes to making sure that the institutions themselves will try to shape you, the way you think, the way for critical thinking and all that. Do you see that probably in current era, we're having young people who are really not thinking much about how to solve a problem, but rather they want to just fit into the society. They think that the society should embrace them. Is that a current trend? Do you see that as a current trend?
I'll take you back on a very small. I'll take you back to a very small example.
Okay.
I think it was sometime in 2016. We did a news mention at some events. So I was at some events speaking about why job seekers need to stop harassing employers with their CVs, and a couple of news outlets picked up the story, and it was published over the internet. And on social media, some of the comments coming from young people I was shocked, because a lot of people. So a couple of people mentioned on social media that that why would I say they should stop harassing employers with their CV? Some even went as far as insulting me personally, that it's not my fault. It's because I have a job. That's why I'm saying people should not. But it brings me to what I call the feeling of entitlement.
Okay.
A lot of young people have this attitude of entitlement that I don't know where it comes from. I don't know how it comes from. They feel somebody out there owes them something. Society owes them nothing. You being here in the first place means you owe everybody else something because you're taking up somebody else's space. You're taking up somebody else's resources. So if young people begin to see themselves as being functioning members of society, because when you think somebody owes you something, you don't see yourself as a functioning member of society. You see yourself as somebody who society has to serve, somebody who society has to give everything to. But the truth is that you actually have more responsibility to contribute more to society than any other person. So I think a lot of young people, first of all, that is where schools need to address it from.
Okay.
We need to work on the psyche, the mentality of the young people. Nobody owes you anything. Rather, you owe society more. We need to let people understand their role in playing civic responsibilities.
Okay. As
part of your civic responsibility, there's a taxation structure within the country. Everybody has to contribute to that. It is from the funds the government generates from that they use in supporting social security. Yeah. They use in helping unemployed people. You understand? So it is your duty to go and get a job so you can contribute your tax properly. If peradventure for some reason you're unemployed at some point, you too can benefit from the social security system. But if you have a child with an average university undergraduate these days, what they are primarily concerned about is the fact that they need to make money.
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. They need to get money. So how do you want to get money? There's no plan. What do you need to do to get money? There's no plan. When you get the money, what will you do with it?
Who should we be blaming? Is it our upbringing, or is it the society, or is it the individual?
So there's a question that I have for you also. Will you ever see a monkey living in a pack of lions?
Probably when you answer mine first, I'll answer your question.
It would be almost impossible for you to find a monkey living in a pack of lions. Exactly. Or rather you find in a pride of lions, or rather you find a lion living amongst monkeys. It's simple. A society can only get the kind of people they produce.
So we are producing, so we shouldn't be complaining.
So society is producing them. Society is one who is producing what society is getting. I'll give you I'd like to explain that in this direction. In the sense that currently morals, ideals within society have shifted from the way it used to be some years back. In the past, you could not just wake up someday and say you were rich. People will ask questions about your source of income. People will ask you questions about how did you come about your money. Questions will be asked. Not even only your parents, your relatives, your friends, your neighbors. People will ask. People will not just jump on the bandwagon and start hailing you for that. But this is what happens. Somebody comes in with money. Nobody knows where the money comes from, and everybody is just hovering around him, calling him the king, calling him chairman, all sorts of things. And it just reinforces the idea that what society is concerned about is the end, not the means.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, the means also, in this case, determines the end. So if the means through which you acquire the money is an illegal means, an abnormal way, it also sets a precedent for others to follow. It also sets an example for others to emulate. So society is mostly responsible for that. Society is becoming too materialistic. Society is becoming too individualistic. Africans by nature, we are communal. Africans by nature, we like to organize ourselves in groups. But these days, it's all man for himself. It's all man for himself, and that eventually is going to break down the fabric of society the way we know it. So the best way to go about the change, since we are beginning to understand that people are becoming more individualistic, is to address the issues with the individuals. Is to solve the problems that individuals have, the challenges that individuals have, which is the orientation needs to change, the mindset needs to change. It's not just about getting rich.
Okay.
It's the process through which you plan to get rich. It's what you're going to do after you get rich. How are you going to impact society with that?
Let's talk today. Our focus is more on the youth, and I think this one is very, very critical, and most people would be more interested in CV writing.
Yeah.
Very often, and you find yourself in a place where you tend to scrutinize a lot of CVs and all that.
Yeah.
How bad is it, or how good is it? Is it that there's a problem with the nature of CVs that we present to you, or what exactly is the problem? Is it that there are no jobs? I have had the opportunity to interact with one recruitment agency, and what she made mention of is the fact that there are jobs, but unfortunately they are even struggling to get the people to feed into the vacancies that we have. What exactly is wrong with the CV writings these days?
This is a very sore spot for a lot of job seekers, because job seekers usually don't like being berated for their inability to live up to the expectations of employers.
Okay.
So if you take an average job description, for instance, you probably will have like responsibilities, requirements, educational qualifications, years of experience required, and all of that. The person takes their time out to write what they are looking for. I usually tell people, consider a job description a marriage proposal. Somebody's out there putting out a proposal to you, and even though the conditions and the terms have been clearly specified in the proposal, and you know you don't meet up to the terms and conditions, and you still present yourself, or even though the person states specifically that I want a rich man, and you go there dressed in tattered clothes,
Okay.
you go down a bicycle, even though you are rich, and you're telling the person, oh, don't worry, I'm rich, I'm just doing this for the effects, nobody will believe you. It's only when you go there in your big car and you're looking grand, that's when people will begin to believe that, okay, it seems like this guy is who he says he is. It's the same way with CVs.
Okay.
If the major problem with CVs from my own end is articulation and understanding what the employer wants. If you understand what the employer wants, articulating your skills and your experience in relation to what the employer wants is really the key to filling a lot of roles. Yes, matching is a big problem for us. Fitting for every employer across the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. Finding the right people to fit into the right roles can be quite of a challenge, because sometimes people overstate their capabilities. Only when you invite them and you realize that they don't even, the CV and the person, they don't match. Sometimes people understate their capabilities.
Okay.
So at that point, because the CV is the first point of contact with the job seekers, you probably would have screened them out of the process without even getting to meet them.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? So sometimes also people not only people don't have the right words, they don't have the right language to communicate what they've done in the past, what they are doing currently. So at that point, what do you do as an employer?
You shortlist.
So it can actually be a challenge for most employers, where in finding the right talent, in finding the best people for their vacancies. But that is why people like us, we're in business. We're creating tools, we're creating processes, we're creating systems that would make it easier, that would make it less stressful for employers to find the.
So you are taking the stress. Yeah, you're taking the stress.
And I look very stressed.
You don't look it.
I look very stressed.
You don't. But let's talk about sometimes. Mostly, you made mention of criteria. It's just like a marriage proposal. They've spelled out clearly the details of what the employer is looking out for.
Yeah.
And there are times where they're asking for 5 years experience, 15 years experience. And then if you look at the educational qualification, they're asking for first degree.
Yeah.
Sometimes most people are asking, so you want 15 years experience and you're calling for first degree. For Christ's sake, the person probably applying might have completed school just 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
Do you really consider the number of years in terms of experience? You match that with the academic qualification that you mostly require from their job description?
First of all, let's get something very clearly. A lot of employers are private. Majority of the employers in sub-Saharan Africa are private enterprises, and we all know that anybody who's a private person in business is in business for only one reason. Okay. Which is profit. And in getting the best profit, in getting the most profit out of their business, they need the best people to help them run their businesses. So if an employer tells you he wants 15 years, that is who he thinks can deliver on the results he wants, right? So it's up to you to either have the experience the employer requires, or you go and acquire it. So it's like you having you have a problem in your house with your plumbing system in your house. I'm sure you wouldn't call an electrician to come fix your plumbing system. You probably go look for a plumber to come fix your plumbing system. It's the same way an employer too, he has a particular need. He requires this particular years of experience. He requires this particular skill set. I'm saying he should take something lower. He should take something different. You're asking him to bring down his standards, his requirements, when even in your own personal life, in your house, in your homes, you will not bring down the standards.
Babajide, you agree with me that there are times that some people, it's good you made mention of the fact that some CVs, some people either overstate or understate their experiences and all that. And there are times where people have fantastic experiences and you recruit them and then they get on the job and they can't perform. What happens? Because you're also looking at experiences and they have fantastic presentation. When you take a look at their CV, everything is fine. You do go through the interview process, they are okay, but on the job,
so
they tend not to perform.
One of the things that I would like to say is that a thorough interview process or a thorough recruitment process, 99.9% of the time usually produces the best candidates. It is where corners are being cut, where shortcuts are being created. That is usually when you end up with a candidate who gets on the job and is not able to deliver. A very good instance, you hire a candidate and you don't do some level of testing to understand their functional capabilities, to understand their behavioral capabilities, to understand their team capability, their ability to work with other people. At some point, those parts of the interview process will be guessed out.
All right, so we will go for a very short commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation on this particular topic. I'm sure you have some concerns, and definitely I will try as much as possible to ask your questions for you. On that note, let's take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Babajide. We'll be right back. So you're welcome back from that break. You're watching CEO's Show on BTA and GNTV UK. This program is proudly sponsored by GTP New Style, and you can see for yourself. It says more colors, more design, and thanks to Jine Jacoma Collections for my outfits for today. Thanks so much for this particular one. We're still talking to Babajide, and we're talking about critical issues which most young entrepreneurs or most young individuals, especially those who are not employed, will be interested. And I'll try as much as possible, as I said earlier, to ask some of your questions. Before I went on break, I was talking about the experience part where sometimes most employers, the bottom line for them is to make profit, is to maximize profits. So they would want to ensure that they are bringing on board the right person. But here's the situation where sometimes I appreciate the fact that you said you need to 99.9% when you do a thorough interview, you tend to erase or get rid of some of these issues that pops up where people have fantastic CVs and on their job they're unable to perform. When that happens, as a recruitment agency, what do you think that the companies are supposed to do? For instance, you've gone through thorough interview procedures and all that. The person has good CVs, the person is articulate, and you can see for yourself that the person can do the job, but it gets to the practical aspect, the person is unable to deliver. What, in your opinion, do you think employers should do?
So I think that, first of all, if I were in that situation, the first thing I'll do is to do a re-evaluation of the skill sets that the individual is bringing on board to the company. Also, I would do a function evaluation to understand what is required of whoever is occupying that particular role, and then try to do a matching of the skills that the individual is bringing on board versus the functions required in that role. And so it will help us identify the skills gap. And after identifying the skills gap, would determine if there are skills that can be trainable.
Okay.
Right? If we can train the individual to up their skills to that point. And where it is utterly impossible, then there has to be some sort of either extending maybe a probation period with the organization or the HR partner within the organization having a conversation with whoever is the individual is, pointing out these issues to them and letting them know that yes, the organization stands behind them, the organization supports them, the organization is really interested in seeing them grow, but these are the gaps we've identified in your skill set. So the best thing for us to do now is you work on fixing the gaps while we also support you in getting there. If not, then we can no longer keep you within the organization.
Okay.
You understand? So there has to be a period for performance improvement where a personal performance improvement plan can be drawn to identify if there are personality issues or maybe they're just behavioral issues. There are a couple of things out there that can really be responsible for.
But do you see company owners or let's say HR practitioners really walking the talk? Like for instance, what you say, because there are perceptions that once they realize that you don't really fit into the job, what they do is most people do not do the evaluation and all that. All they do is they show you the exit door. Do you see this? Is there a current trend?
No. Usually, from the people we work with, we usually advise people on their performance improvement, on their particular performance management, especially when we are directly responsible for bringing in the person.
Okay.
We have to help you identify that there is a well-structured performance tracking system in place within the organization to make sure that it helps you keep track of performance. And also, there are certain things that are required by law.
Okay.
By law, certain countries require that you give people a notice period.
Yeah.
I think in Ghana it's about 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, you do 3 times before.
3 times before you let the person go. So during the notice period, obviously you have to state why you are giving the person some notice as to if it's based on poor performance.
Okay.
And usually proactive people would come to you and try to find out, especially somebody who's just new on the job, would want to find out why you think their performance is poor and what you think they can do better or how they can fix it. So employers that are doing the right thing, usually they get to either create the avenue for these conversations to be had or they create the opportunities for these conversations to be created. But obviously there are a couple of people out there who might lack the professional experience on how to deal with some of these issues. My advice to such people would be to seek professional experience from professional HR people, or in any case, you can always come to us.
In any case, you can always fall on them. But let's just backtrack a bit. I'm sure there's also another essential aspect. You made mention of the fact that the first point of contact when you're seeking for a job is your CV.
Yes,
because that is what the employer would want to take a look at. And based on that, they will decide to call you for further interactions and all that. Beyond the CV, as an individual, as an unemployed person, what are some of the things I need to take into consideration? Should my CV, for instance, it goes to an employer and you are successful for the first phase and therefore you need to go through the second phase. What are some of the steps that as an individual who is unemployed, I need to pay critical attention
One of the things a lot of job seekers are very, very guilty of is they never do background research into the companies they are going to.
Okay.
So if you are invited for an interview by a company, the very first thing you need to do is you need to research about that company. You need to find out who are the management team of that company. What is the company's mission and vision? What is the company's philosophies? What products do they sell? Who are their retailers? Who are their distributors? You need to, what do their products look like? You need to go out there and do proper research, because it just makes you, during the interview process, it makes you more knowledgeable about what you're talking about, even where you don't even know what is going on there. But the fact that you can relate your previous experience to their current situation, it makes it easier for them to understand you. It makes it easier for them to relate to you.
Okay.
But most of the times, job seekers go to interviews without knowing a single thing about the companies they are being interviewed by. They'll be like, "Oh, I was just called yesterday for an interview. I was just called this morning for an interview." It is not an excuse at all. I've seen somebody go for an interview. He was called maybe like a couple of hours before the interview, but because he had to drive himself to the interview venue, he could not do research. But while he was waiting for his turn to be interviewed, he brought out his phone and was reading up stuff about the company on the internet. He was Googling what they sold, the products they had, how long they had been in business. And I just happened to working on him there. And I'm like, oh, are you not supposed to be here for an interview? I was like, yeah, but he had to drive himself here, so on his way he couldn't really find out information about the company. But this is an opportunity for him to just research about the company. A lot of job seekers are very guilty of that. They apply to jobs, they don't even research about the company. They go even when they get called for the interviews, they go to the interviews without researching about the company. Then they leave the interview and they say, I was not picked. You can't just come there and give us generic answers.
You want specific answers?
Yes, relatable answers.
Okay.
The employer should be able to relate to your answers. They should be able to relate to your experience. If, for instance, you're talking about your experience about how you used to be a salesperson, and maybe you're coming from a company where you sell solar panels, and I want you to sell maybe heavy-duty equipment for me.
Okay.
Well, I sold 2,000 solar panels in the past. I was able to convince my clients. No. I'd rather take somebody who would tell me, yes, I've sold solar panels in the past, but while selling solar panels, some of my clients also, because they used heavy-duty equipment, we had to show them how the solar panels could help them power some of their heavy-duty equipment.
So you should be able to relate to the needs of that particular employer.
You should be able to relate with it. Where you're unable to relate to the needs of the employer, it makes it the same way you cannot just walk up to anybody and tell them a story they don't understand. It's like telling a Ghanaian, oh, in Netherlands, money falls on the streets. Until the person gets to Netherlands, he will not believe you.
Let's get to understand Jobberman Ghana.
Yes, please.
And this is just a one-stop shop where I'm sure you receive a lot of applications on daily basis.
Yeah.
What are your major challenges right here in Ghana?
To put Jobberman in perspective, we do at least about 200,000 applications every month.
Okay.
We have about 500,000 job seekers signed up on the portal. We from inception till date, we've served 16,000 plus clients. So if we are to go by those numbers, yes, we are the one-stop shop for job search, career planning, hiring and employment, and recruitment in Ghana. Your question was about the challenges we face. Yeah. A lot of the times, it's hard for job seekers to distinguish between when a client posts a job on Job Seeker and not understanding that it is not Jobberman who is hiring.
Okay.
So because of the impatience of job seekers, when they apply to jobs, they just assume that the application is to Jobberman. The application is not to Jobberman. The application
so
goes
when they are
to,
called, they do research on Jobberman.
They don't even research. That brings us back to the point of research. When you see company A advertising, some people will say, "Oh, I don't think the ad is real. I don't think we have over 40 people working in the office here in Ghana. If for an organization that is that big, we post ads that are not real, we work with companies that are not real, then we are here for no reason."
Okay.
But the truth is this: like you mentioned before, a lot of companies are out there hiring, looking for people to work with. So the major challenge with us, particularly for job seekers, is job seekers need to understand.
Okay.
They need to know how to approach companies. They need to know what to do when they are approaching companies. They need to know what to do when they are applying for jobs. People apply for jobs serially. We have people who call serial applicants. Okay. They just send their CVs to every job ad.
How do you scrutinize that?
Oh, we have a screening tool on the platform that helps employers sieve out the unqualified applications without even having to look at them.
Would you want to take us through your selection process? How do you do that? Because you receive applications monthly.
So employers come to the platform. They put up their ads on the platform. After putting up the ads on the platform, somebody in-house, like a content manager, edits the content to make sure that it fits the house style and they are grammatically correct. Then the ad is live on the website, so job seekers can apply. Job seekers apply. The applications goes directly to the employer, or the employer's account on Jobberman. The employer, when they are ready, they log into their accounts where they can see all of the applications, or they get the applications in their email box if they choose to do so. Though we think that's not an efficient process, though. They log into the platform. on the platform, we have a screening tool there where employers can search through all the applications that has been sent in for certain skill sets, for maybe the experience requirements. They can filter. They can actually filter the applications down to the last detail about either the person is willing to relocate. They can filter by educational qualification. They can filter by experience. They can filter by location. They can filter by they can filter by willingness to relocate. They can filter by a couple of factors, and that helps them narrow down their search to the guys that really fit into what they are looking for, and which they can obviously download the CVs all at once, or they can use our platform there to send emails to the job seekers for interviews or for a screening session or for a testing session. We even on the platform also we have what we call test questions, where employers can either during the process of posting the ad, they can decide to set some test questions for job seekers to answer before they submit the application.
And that's not made public to the job seeker.
It's made no. Job seekers have access to it on the front end, on the job seeker end. Employers on their own end can set the questions so that when job seekers are applying for the jobs, they answer those questions before sending the application.
And most people still deviate even though these questions are there?
Sometimes you actually have to answer the questions before the application can be sent. You understand? So usually we realize that job ads like that have fewer applications, but the applications are of higher quality because it meant that the person has to read through the job description, has to take their time to answer the question before sending through the application. So the quality of the applications, they are usually better.
So, but there are times where Jobberman would have to do the screening process and all that. In that circumstances, what are some of the things that you take into consideration? I know, for instance, the employer will spell out clearly that, okay, I want these qualifications, the number of years, the experience and all that. Do you go strictly by that, or there are times that you feel, okay, this CV, if you take a look at the experience, probably the number of years, the person might not have attained that number of years, but if you take a look at the CV, there are times that you can have a foresight and say this person is capable of doing the job. Do you sometimes compromise and then probably justify that to the employer?
We don't compromise. So that's where I'll start to answer that question from. We don't compromise. Why? When the requirements are clearly spelled out, there is no point going about it, especially with employers who know what they want. Even where the requirements are not clearly spelled out, we encourage employers to clearly spell out the requirements. Where the requirements are clearly spelled out, you have to go by those requirements. It's either you are overqualified, we will not accept you being underqualified. It's either you're overqualified or you're exactly on the mark. And that's for many reasons, one of which I've enumerated before. But also it talks about the quality of work you do as an organization. If as an organization you go about making excuses for ineptitude, the inability of just to express themselves clearly, it begins to make you look like you're mediocre in some way too. So as an organization, it's an organizational policy. We don't compromise on some of these things. There are enough job seekers out there who are interested, who have the right qualifications, who have the right skill set to fit any role. I'd give you an example. There was a point sometime last year we had to fill 20 subsea diving engineers. Do you know how hard it is to find that, even across the whole of the world? We have to go look for 20 of that. And for an average screening process where you have to fill for one role, you need minimum of 10 viable candidates to fill for one role. So it meant that for the 20 roles, we needed to have at least 60 to 100 subsea diving engineers at hand.
And when that happens, when you're unable to get that locally, what do? You resort?
I think so far we've not had any role where we were unable to fill locally.
Oh, really?
Yes. You might have locals who are stationed abroad. You might have locals who are working in other countries. So usually it is our job to go find them
and let them relocate.
Most times they're usually happy to relocate because they're just. The reason why a lot of people don't want to relocate is because they don't know what is waiting for them back home. But when they know that there's a job waiting for them back home, most of them are usually interested in. And
some of these jobs, specifically, which sectors, which areas?
Oh no, they're probably the high skilled jobs like in the oil and gas, the high engineering roles. a couple of C-level roles within some industry specific roles. So yeah, it's not too common, but just a few of them out there.
Between Jobberman and the employers,
Yes, please.
do you have some form of contract to protect the individual that you are recruiting for?
The individual
So, for instance, let's say company A falls on Jobberman to make some recruitments based on the vacancies that they have. Are there some contracts to ensure that this particular employee is not subjected to any form of difficulties or anything? So at the end of the day, you are protecting the employee. For instance, let's say also that you recruit someone and within 3 months, the employer probably do not go through the labor law and what the law actually says about recruitment, so that you need to give the person 3 notices before you terminate the person's appointment.
Yeah.
Do you have some contracts like that to ensure that you protect your client and also protect the person you're recruiting for?
Usually we have in the past created a lot of opportunities for employers to be educated, to be enlightened about the HR, labor law, the labor requirements for hiring. We have a very active blog. We have employer events that we organize also for HR leaders and for HR business leaders also, and even CEOs. Through these various forum, we let employers know what is obtainable, what the standard should be. We also use the opportunity also to educate job seekers also about what is expected of them in the workplace and outside of the workplace also as an employee of different companies. What we do not do is that once an employer takes you on as an employee, we are no longer in that mix, because you are a direct responsibility of that company. But what we will not tolerate is employers using our platform to ask job seekers to pay money for maybe a recruitment process, or to pay money to be hired, or to pay money to take a test. We strongly discourage that, because we believe that every recruitment process should be free and fair and open to as many people who are eligible as possible. So, and also there's just too many gray areas in between that part that we cannot vouch for. So the best thing for everybody is to just make it free and fair and open to all. A lot of the times, job seekers sometimes can even be funny. They take up these things and they won't come back they would refuse to give you testimonials. But the moment they have a problem with the employer, they come back to you to say, Jobberman, I got this job on Jobberman, I have this problem with the person. But when we're asking you, when you didn't come back to say, give us a testimonial that you got the job on Jobberman. But some of these issues, where possible that we can intervene, where possible that we can educate, where possible that we can enlighten, we do that. We do these activities just to make sure that everybody is happy with what they end up with at the end of the day.
So you're welcome back from that break. You're watching the CEO's Chair, and we have Babajide right here with us, talking to us about some issues which are of national interest as well. But it's time for us to appreciate the issues that he's already explained. But you can do that by knowing who exactly, most people will be able to relate by knowing who exactly is the gentleman. You've talked about unemployment situation, and you've talked about that the individuals themselves must work towards that in addressing the unemployment situation in the country. We should not leave it to government alone. A lot of things you have said on this platform, but who exactly are you? How would you assess or describe yourself?
Well, I don't think I'm in the best position to describe myself, but I'll try to give it a shot. I'm a very, very opinionated individual. I have very strong opinions, but I also believe that anything is possible. Because I've had a friend whose life changed. He used to have only a pair of jeans and two shirts, and he woke up the following morning a millionaire without winning the lottery, and without doing anything really dubious. So I believe that anything is possible as long as there is life, there is hope. That's my personal mantra. I strongly believe in acquiring knowledge,
Okay.
Yes, I read anything I read from everything to anything. I love to be in a situation where I help other people.
Okay.
I love to impact other people. I love to help other people grow. I love to help other people achieve their dreams because there's just some sort of feeling that comes with that. There's some sort of altruistic feeling that comes with that. I never give up.
Okay.
I don't quit. I don't quit. Some people can testify to that. I don't. I also don't. I don't subscribe to holding the government responsible for everything.
Okay.
Because there are quite a lot of examples out there as to people making their way out without the help of the government.
Okay.
So if all of us can be like that, the government will actually be not as important as the government is. Or by then we'll eventually have people who would be able to go into government and do the right thing in government. Yeah, that's who I am.
It's interesting how you started that you try and then describe yourself, but you've talked about the positive side. I'm sure people, we all have the negative sides.
Yeah.
But tell us, what don't you like about yourself?
Sometimes I think I can be too opinionated.
Okay.
Sometimes my opinions can be too strong, and one of the things I've learned from doing what I do is that it's not every time you say what you feel, because sometimes you might actually be hurting other people's feelings. You might actually be telling them something that is too bitter for them to swallow. So you just probably need to look for a nicer way to say it, or just not say it at all. Or so I think that is number one.
Okay.
But that I have been able to work on very well, I can tell you for because I also think that is probably due to my background when I was in university, I was a students' union leader in the university. So I was used to leading a lot of struggles. And the best way, obviously, then was to always say things the way they were. And so it probably morphed into my personality also. The other thing I think I don't like is that I'm not big on no's.
Okay.
I'm not very big on no's. Even sometimes when it's so inconvenient for me, when it's so uncomfortable for me, I always try to find a way of squeezing it into my schedule, into my work life, and obviously affects other parts of my life also. So one of the things I've also been working on also is learn how to say
no sometimes.
Not know when you need to say no.
Okay.
Yes, and not try to be the Jesus guy. I think for now that's the part I probably would like to share on camera. I think there are other parts also that maybe anybody who's interested can contact me later. We can have that.
But probably I'm also interested. So that's how come I'm asking you.
Yeah, we can have that conversation off camera.
Off camera.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
But tell us, how was it like growing up? I'm sure most people, we want to use this platform to inspire a lot more young people, irrespective of which geographical location they find themselves.
Yeah.
Tell us, growing up, how was it like for you?
Growing up was very, very wonderful. I come from a very, very for lack of a better word, I come from a polygamous family. Okay. Yes, my father had a couple of wives. So I don't know if that qualifies as polygamy. They were separated. So my parents were separated growing up. Okay. So I had to live with my mother and a lot of my mother's family members growing up. So it meant that my mother had a very strong influence over my life growing up. But one of the things that I think helped me turn out the way I did was growing up also, I had a lot of religious influence over my life. I was talking to somebody yesterday about how I used to be a Catholic and how I used to go to church every day, Monday to Sunday, for 2 hours every day, Monday to Sunday. How you used
to, but you no longer do that?
Oh, of course, I go to church now. Of course, I go to church.
But
I'm a Christian, not Monday to Sunday.
Monday to Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then as a kid, obviously, you had that time to go to church Monday to Sunday. It helped me a lot because I think that it helped keep me away from a lot of vices growing up. Um, and also, my mother is a very strong woman, very, very strong woman in any sense of the word. So she also raised me up with a lot of discipline and a lot of firmness. So I think growing up, but this is the interesting part, right? So my mother had only two kids,
Okay.
myself and my elder sister. And my elder sister is probably like about some 10 years or 7 years older. I think about 7, 8 years older than I am. And so we're generations apart.
Okay.
So while I was going into primary school, she was leaving secondary school. While I was going into secondary school, she was going into the university. So there wasn't a point where we're both at home at the same time.
Okay.
Because while I was in primary school, she was in the boarding school. So while I went to boarding school for secondary school, she was going to the university. So while she left the university, I was going into the university.
Okay.
You understand? So so I grew up alone. So I grew up sort of like alone because I probably would see my sisters only during the holidays. So it meant that I had to read. So obviously I had nobody to. I had very few people to play with, so I read a lot.
So you don't like making friends?
Oh, I like meeting new people.
Okay.
I like making friends. Obviously, I've grown out of that. I'm also a very gregarious person, but what a lot of people don't know is I'm also shy, because I think
Are
that
you?
yes, I am.
Still? Or
Still,
you were?
yes, even up till now. Sometimes I just feel like everything around is happening too fast. You just have to calm down, take it one step at a time.
Okay.
So growing up for me was very interesting because I read a lot. It was even as bad as when I went on holidays to my grandfather's. He would pile up newspaper worth of maybe 3 months for me just so that I can read when I'm on holiday. Because when there's nothing for me to read, I start picking up everything around the house and I start reading all the product labelings and start having conversation with him about that. So what that did to me was it helped me grow an inquisitive mind. I was very inquisitive growing up. I was always asking questions, and up till now I'm very inquisitive. Sometimes I have conversations with people about things I have no business knowing, and they're surprised that, so how did you find out this information? What do you need it from? Like, yeah, I don't need it, but I just like to know a little bit of everything. So growing up for me was very exciting. I went to a couple of very tough schools. I went to the first secondary school in West Africa, which was founded in 1859. I'm very super proud of that.
Which institution is that?
It's called CMS Grammar School.
Okay.
It's the very first secondary school in the whole of West Africa. It was founded by the late Reverend Thomas Babinti Macaulay.
I can see you are really proud of that.
Very proud of that. I could tell you more. He's the father to one of the first nationalists in Nigeria called Herbert Macaulay.
Okay.
He's actually the father of nationalism in Nigeria, Herbert Macaulay. But anyway, that's a conversation for
another time.
I studied advertising and public relations in the university. I have an executive MBA from MSBM in the UK. I've also done a lot of courses here and there. I have a couple of certifications in a lot of things. Digital marketing, management, organizational leadership, SEO, SEM. It's a bit of everything anyway, just to fit into what I do, and just to fit into my personality also.
Okay.
So growing up, yeah, because I don't think a lot of people consider growing up as the period in between when you're a child to maybe when you're 21 or 18. No, I think that till we die, we're all still growing. So for me, yes, growing up that's the journey of growing up so far. I think that fits into it.
So life has been good with you. It hasn't been that difficult.
No, life has not been good. Life has been very good, yes, to the glory of God. But yes, there have been challenges.
Tell us about the major obstacle that you encountered and how you were able to manage that particular situation.
So I think that one of the biggest challenges for me was deciding to take up this job. Because when I joined, when I was where I was before joining Jobberman, I was like the personal assistant to the chairman of a group of five companies. So it was a very exciting role. But at some point I just felt I needed to do something different. So obviously on what I was doing, I was already on a career path to a C-level role.
Okay.
So when I joined Jobberman in Nigeria, it was more or less like I just picked up it was more or less like I just joined. I just picked up an uncertain job, because Jobberman was just about 2 years or so out of the block then. So a year or two out of the block then, it was a bit of an uncertain situation, which my mother had a very strong opinions about. But because I was looking for something exciting, and also after talking to the guy who was the CEO for Jobberman then, Chika was he's very good at expressing his visions.
Okay.
And he was able to sell the idea to me then, and yeah, so I think that was deciding to leave that and coming to do this was actually a very tough decision, because it felt like I was leaving good money. It felt like I was leaving certainties for a lot of uncertainties. And I also think that along that line too,
Okay.
what also qualifies as my toughest situation also was when the biggest challenge I faced was when I was coming to start Jobberman Ghana. Before then, I'd never been to Ghana before. I didn't know anybody in Ghana. And the guys in Nigeria just said, okay, we want to do this, and we think you are the guy who's crazy enough to go and do it.
Have you regretted so far, just briefly? Have you regretted taking up this position?
No. I actually have more to be thankful for than to regret. Yes, there have been tough times. There's been times you probably look back and feel like, what am I doing? Where you want to give up, where you feel frustrated. But overall, I haven't regretted this experience.
Okay.
It's been a very rich learning experience for me also. Like I said, growing up is a lifelong journey. So I've obviously morphed a lot from what I was in the past 6 years when I came to start this to where I am now.
Okay.
It's an exciting, and the funny thing is I've actually acquired very strong skills also in the past 6 years.
Okay.
Now I'm very big on performance management. I'm very big on performance management. I'm very big on professional development. I'm very big on sales and business development. So it's overall, it's been a wonderful experience.
Overall, indeed, it's been a wonderful experience also talking to you. But let me just pick your final comments to job seekers and then young graduates. What message do you have for them, briefly?
To the young people out there, I'll just say this. To the young people out there, the first thing I'm going to say to you is nobody owes you anything. Nobody owes you anything. Rather, you owe society a lot for being here. And it's your responsibility to find a way for yourself. It's your responsibility to succeed. It's your responsibility to be great. And if you're not great, it's your responsibility to be functional. Do not take anything for granted. When opportunities come, take the best use of them. And keep learning, keep growing, and I'm sure you'll be the best.
So we'd like to say thank you so much. So keep learning, and definitely you will be the best. But remember that no one owes you. You rather, you have a responsibility, a duty to offer to society. Thank you so much, Babajide, for joining us on CEO's Chair. We're grateful for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity given to me to express my views. And I also wish you guys the best of luck. And I'm sure that the sky is the starting point. All
right, so indeed the sky is the starting point so far. It's been good interacting with him. I'm sure you have been educated, you have been informed. If you're a job seeker, you know what to do now. Put the past behind you and then try as much as possible to correct yourselves. Definitely, you'll make some progress coming. But that's all we have for you by way of CEO's Chair today. I've been speaking to Babajide Otoki, and he's the CEO of Jobberman Ghana. And we've been talking about unemployment and also what Jobberman actually does as an entity. But that's all once again we have for you. Thanks to our sponsors. That's GTP New Style for this fabric, and GTP says more designs, more colors, more designs. And also to Jine Jakoma Collection for this wonderful design. And she's also saying timeless impression. My name is Winifred Ampia. Till we meet again, do enjoy the rest of our programs.